Hello everyone, today I will be reviewing Easy Rider. So Easy Rider came out in 1969 and was directed by and also starring Dennis Hopper, and this film also stars Peter Fonda and Jack Nicholson. So at the start of this film we see these two guys. We get Peter Fonda plays a character called Wyatt and Dennis Hopper plays a character called Billy, and these two guys, they make some money off this cocaine deal, and they basically travel across the southwest and the south of America on their bikes. The whole film is basically one big road trip. We see them travel from Los Angeles to New Orleans, and they stop off at lots of different places along the way, and they meet all sorts of different groups of people. And yeah, they basically get closer and closer to the city area. They start off really in the wilderness, and then they come closer and closer where they meet lots of different groups of people. Some of them they manage to fit in with, and some of them that they don't really get along with. So this film came out in 1969, which was at the height of the hippie counterculture movement, and as such this film was very popular with young people who were part of that movement. This film is also seen as part of that hippie counterculture movement. It came out the same year as the famous Woodstock Festival, 1969, and yes, it was very popular with young people at the time, and it was a film which lots of younger people could relate to and think, yes, that represents us, and this is who we are, and this is what we stand for. This film really represents the theme of rebellion and wanting to be free and independent from society, and wanting to go on the road and get out there away from everything and live your own life. And in this film we start to see them, Wyatt and Billy, they come across different groups of people, and at the start they meet this family who sort of welcomes them and offers them some food. They move on to another place where they meet this countercultural hippie group where they get along fine with. Then they start to move closer into town, and they actually end up being thrown in jail, and they meet Jack Nicholson's character, George Hanson. And George Hanson is a lawyer, and George Hanson as a character, he always wears a suit because he's a lawyer, obviously. He's a businessman, but he still manages to get along with the two hippies, Wyatt and Billy, even though they're completely different characters. But later on, and this is probably my favourite scene in the film actually, Wyatt, Billy and George, they'll go to this diner in the south of America, and all the guys in the diner, they are looking at these three guys really weirdly, and they start to say strange things about them and saying, you know, why don't you get a haircut, and that sort of thing really. And it's obvious that when a group of people come into their area who they don't recognise and don't seem to fit in, they don't like it and they don't want them there. I'll now say what I like about this film, and then I will then say what I don't like about it. So first of all, what I do like about it is the soundtrack. The soundtrack is absolutely brilliant in this film. We get lots of scenes where Wyatt, Billy, they are riding across the desert or across the wilderness in America, and we get lots of scenes like this where they're just riding along, and we get some music playing in the background. So we get the song Born to be Wild by Steppenwolf, which I think is an absolute brilliant track. Really suits the film's theme of rebellion really well. And we get loads of other great songs as well throughout this film. And all the songs are absolutely brilliant. They all really tie in with this film's theme. I also think Jack Nicholson is absolutely superb in this. And it's a shame he doesn't get more screen time, but he was just absolutely fantastic. He really plays an interesting character in this film, a character who's almost a bridge between the hippies and the more civilized people, because he almost manages to get along with both, and he is sort of a happy medium between them, while not being a crazy hippie and part of the counterculture movement, but also not being very conservative and also hating the hippies at the same time. So Jack Nicholson, very good in this. I really like the scenery in this film. It's a really nice looking film, very colourful. We go to lots of different locations and we see lots of fantastic settings, and it all just looks very nice. So what I don't like about this film, I'll now say, so first of all, I find the plot to me wasn't necessarily that interesting, and there isn't really much of a plot to this film, but that's not necessarily the idea of the film. The film is not a traditional film in the way the plot is told. There isn't really a beginning, middle and end. Well, there is an end to it. There isn't really anything that happens in this film where we think, oh, okay, now bad stuff's about to happen, and now we need to care about these characters. It's mostly just two guys going on their bikes, and we get loads of scenes, as I mentioned earlier, where they're just riding on their bikes along the road, the music is playing. Now, it's not necessarily bad, but I think, in my opinion, it sort of goes on for a bit too long and we get quite a lot of the same thing. Now, I'm probably missing the point of this movie because it is very much a film of its time. It was released in the 60s and appealing to these hippie countercultural people, which I completely understand, but just in my personal opinion, it's not a particularly film which I particularly enjoyed watching and am tempted to watch again. I still think it's good, but just not a great film. I also don't particularly think Peter Fonda is a fantastic actor. I do think he's good, but I just don't think. But I think when compared to Dennis Hopper and Jack Nicholson, Peter Fonda really doesn't stand out for me very much in this film. The things that he says in this film, they're just not particularly interesting, and I didn't particularly gauge with his character very much as Dennis Hopper and Jack Nicholson. But I still think he does suit the film well. I just don't think in terms of his acting, I just don't think it's really up there with the other guys, unfortunately. I will say there is lots of drugs in this film, so obviously there is a cocaine deal which takes place, and the main drug use is marijuana or cannabis, which the characters take quite a lot, which I know isn't a necessarily particularly strong drug, but it's still a drug that they take quite a lot throughout this film. So, as you can probably tell, I'm not a massive fan of this film. I do think it's a good film. I just don't necessarily think it's a fantastic film. I certainly wouldn't call it one of the greatest films of all time. And I don't necessarily see it as a classic in my mind. I understand it appealed to a lot of people in its day, and it's almost a mark on history of that point. It's quite symbolic of that era, and it really fits in with the 1960s counterculture movement, which I do like. It's not just a film that particularly resonates with me. So I'm going to give Easy Rider a rating of 7 out of 10. I think it's a good film. I do not think it's a great film, but check it out if you think it sounds like your kind of thing. So there we go. So that is Easy Rider. So what do you guys think? Have you seen Easy Rider? Am I being too harsh giving it a 7 out of 10? Am I missing the point? Please let me know down in the comments. Anyway, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.